Welcome back, Endgame community. It's Chris, and I'm going to bring you some of my favorite buy low wide receivers headed into week 10. All right, let's start with a wide receiver that was one of my favorite wide receivers before the draft, and he's been awesome this year, and that's T. Higgins. But people are a little nervous about T. Higgins right now. They kind of feel like maybe T. Higgins can't be an alpha number one wide receiver, and he really needs Ja'Marr Chase because he's coming off back-to-back good but not great games. But you got to look a little deeper here. Yeah, against Cleveland, probably expected a little bit more, but it wasn't a terrible game. He caught a long touchdown, but people were like, he didn't really get the target share I expected. But then what did we see in week 9? He got a massive target share, almost a 30% target share. The Bengals just didn't have to throw the ball. Joe Burrow only attempted 28 passes. They rested their starters the entire fourth quarter. Joe Mixon went off. Like, Joe Burrow didn't really have to do anything. T. Higgins didn't have to do anything. He's still the number one wide receiver for Joe Burrow, for one of the best offenses. And best of all, he's going on bye this week. Trading for players heading onto their bye is always a good idea because players can't stand not having any fantasy points from their players. They can't go 1 week with a guy on a bye if they can get somebody they can actually put into their lineup. So now is a great time to go get T. Higgins, and they have a great 3 weeks coming out of the bye. They play 3 cream puff defenses he should absolutely annihilate. And look, even with Ja'Marr Chase, if Ja'Marr Chase comes back, we've already seen it. T. Higgins was great with Ja'Marr Chase. He'll be great without Ja'Marr Chase. He'll be great with Ja'Marr Chase. It doesn't matter because he's just a great player. So go see if you can get T. Higgins on the relatively cheap while he's on his bye week before he goes off against 3 terrible defenses. All right, I mentioned Mike Evans last week. I'm mentioning him again because he's even a better value after this week. Look, I knew going into week 9 against the Rams that it was going to be tough for Mike Evans because Jalen Ramsey, who struggled early in the season, this secondary that struggled early in the season, has been playing much better. And we saw that in week 9. Jalen Ramsey did a good job on Mike Evans. But also, Mike Evans dropped like 3 passes in this game. He could have had a way bigger game. 11 targets for Mike Evans. That is one thing about this offense. No, it's not putting up a lot of points. It's not scoring a lot of touchdowns. But they can't run the ball, so they're throwing it a ton. And Mike Evans will continue to see a massive target share. He gets the ball down the field, has the potential to pick up big plays. And we know when they do get near the goal line, near the end zone, he's the guy Brady looks for more often than not. Mike Evans is going to still be a great wide receiver week in and week out with tremendous upside, and people are really nervous about Mike Evans. We got a lot of questions asking, should I trade Mike Evans? Should I sell Mike Evans? No, go trade for Mike Evans. This is the time to trade for a guy like this. So if the person in your league is panicking on Mike Evans, take advantage, go get him. All right, now for a wide receiver that looked like a league winner for 2 whole weeks, and everybody thought they had, hit this year's Cooper Kupp, is Amon-Ra St. Brown. Unfortunately, not going to be this year's Cooper Kupp, but he's still going to be very good. Look, I'm not dogging Amon-Ra St. Brown. Every week I say you got to start Amon-Ra St. Brown, and you do have to start Amon-Ra St. Brown every week. He's getting a great target share. He's getting a great amount of targets. The problem is he's stuck with Jared Goff. He's going to be very volatile because you can't expect Jared Goff to support a fantasy stud. But I still view Amon-Ra St. Brown as an every week wide receiver 2 with upside. And right now people are starting to freak out. We got a lot of questions about Amon-Ra St. Brown. Should I trade this guy? Should I trade him? No! Just like Mike Evans, go trade for him. This is the time to trade for Amon-Ra St. Brown because if the person in your league is panicking about him, like the person with Mike Evans, go get Amon-Ra St. Brown. He still offers an extremely high floor, and we know he's got the ceiling to go with it. So go get Amon-Ra St. Brown. His value is at all-time low, at least, since he went on his little run there of whatever it was where he was crushing it. His value's on an all-time low now. Go trade for the Sun God. All right, now for a wide receiver who's actually been great, but I don't feel like people realize he's been great, and that is Amari Cooper. Amari Cooper has been, in most games, has been very, very good this year. Yes, he's had some duds, but name me wide receivers outside of like the top 6 or 7 that haven't had duds. But he puts up huge games more often than not, and that's with Jacoby Brissett on an offense that just wants to run the football. What happens when Deshaun Watson comes back? Maybe they throw the ball more. Maybe his QB play gets better. we know what Deshaun Watson can do. I am a little nervous that Deshaun Watson may struggle this year, but if he doesn't, or even if he does, it probably won't matter for Amari Cooper because he's doing this with Jacoby Brissett on a run-heavy offense. Amari Cooper is an every week set and forget wide receiver 2 with tremendous upside, and people don't view him that way because they're so scared of those bust weeks. People overvalue bust weeks so much and undervalue boom weeks so much. But those boom weeks help you win, and those bust weeks really don't cause you to lose. People don't get this. So anyways, go out, trade for Amari Cooper at a relative discount, and you have an every week high upside potential league winning wide receiver 2. Speaking of boom bust wide receivers, Gabe Davis. I don't think people realized when they drafted Gabe Davis what they were signing up for. Like, did you think Gabe Davis was going to be a high floor wide receiver with a high ceiling just because he was in the Bills offense? Gabe Davis was never going to be that kind of player. He was going to be the kind of player who had opportunity in a great offense with a great quarterback to put up monster weeks, but also had the opportunity to put up absolute duds. And that's what he's done the last 2 weeks. Now, the irony here is, over the last 2 weeks, he's also seen his best usage of the entire season, and he's had duds. So he's actually getting more targets, more usage. It's just not connecting. Like, I don't know if you expected, 98-yard touchdowns every week, but it's just not going to happen. But he still has tremendous weekly upside, and over the next 3 weeks, he should realize that upside because he gets 3 very good matchups. This is not the time to trade Gabe Davis. This is the time to hold Gabe Davis, or better yet, go trade for Gabe Davis. After he has those 3 big games, then do you want to trade him? Sure, fine, go ahead. But right now is the time to buy low on Gabe Davis because people are panicking on him. They're even asking if they should drop Gabe Davis. So go trade for him right now and ride him at least over the next 3 weeks, if not for the rest of the season. All right, another boom bust wide receiver, which, let's be real, again, every wide receiver outside of the top 8 or 10 or whatever are pretty boom bust, but Devonta Smith, I talked about him last week, didn't deliver. In fact, busted really hard last week. But look at the game script. They only threw the ball 27 times. Dallas Goedert went off. A.J. Brown only had 4 catches for 59 yards. It's not like any receiver went off last week. Devonta Smith is a great real-life wide receiver in a great offense with a great quarterback. I'm always going to buy that if I can. Yes, he's going to be volatile. Like many wide receivers are volatile. You just have to accept that with the wide receiver position. They don't get 15 plus touches every week like a workhorse running back. But that's okay because you want that volatility because on the weeks where he goes off, you win your matchup or he helps you win your matchup. Not everybody can be going for 20 plus points every single week. Devonta Smith right now, again, another guy people are really panicking about that you can get very cheaply at the moment, and you should because, like I said, he's a great player in a great situation tied to a great quarterback. All right, now a couple of injured wide receivers that I talked about last week. I'm going to talk about them again, and let's start with Mike Williams. Week 10 will be the 3rd week since Mike Williams suffered that high ankle sprain. Now, we don't know if he'll be back week 10. We don't know if he'll be back week 11. We don't really know when he'll be back yet. But here's what we do know. The Chargers need Mike Williams. They absolutely need this guy on the field. Without Mike Williams, this offense couldn't do anything and hasn't really done anything. And Mike Williams is a guy just sitting on somebody's bench or in somebody's IR spot with a lot of uncertainty that people just kind of forget about these guys and they forget how good these guys are. You can get Mike Williams relatively cheap right now. And the best part about Mike Williams, other than he's got Justin Herbert as his quarterback and he's on the Chargers, is he has one of, if not the best, remaining schedules for wide receivers. He has almost every single week is a soft matchup. I think he has one tough matchup in like week 15 or 16, but every other matchup is like a bottom 10 defense versus passing games. Mike Williams, whenever he gets back, could absolutely help teams win fantasy championships down the stretch. So go trade for him now while he's still hurt. Stash him on your bench, stash him in your IR, and just wait for him to come back. With the return of DeAndre Hopkins, people thought Marquise Brown was just going to be forgotten in this offense when he came back. Because what did we see from DeAndre Hopkins the first 2 weeks? Some insane, like 50% target share, getting all the targets. Like, oh yeah, remember he's still the wide receiver 1. Well, what happened in week 9? 5 targets. Not even the number 2 target on the team. number 3, and a distant number 3. This is the first time the Cardinals played an actual secondary since Hopkins has been back, because shockingly, Seattle's secondary has been good this year. They've been one of the best against the pass. And what do we see from DeAndre Hopkins? Only 5 targets. He did catch a touchdown to kind of save his day, but the whole point here isn't to rip on DeAndre Hopkins. The point is to show that Marquise Brown still will have a significant role when he comes back, because he was getting a 30% target share before his injury. And the best part for Marquise Brown is this defense can't stop anybody, and this offense has to throw the ball a ton. Every single week, they are throwing it a ton. There is more than enough here for Marquise Brown and DeAndre Hopkins. And what is this offense really missing right now? The deep ball. What is Marquise Brown's strength? The deep ball. He's going to be a deep threat, a huge play waiting to happen every single week, while also getting plenty of targets in the short and intermediate game. Marquise Brown, again, has just been sitting on somebody's IR or on their bench with an injury. He's not eligible to come back until week 11. We don't know if he will come back in week 11. It could be longer. It could be not until after the bye. But now is the time to trade for him and just stash him on your bench. If you're a team definitely heading for the playoffs and you're looking ahead, weeks 14, 15, 16, 17, now is the time to trade for Marquise Brown. All right, now you know some of my favorite buy low wide receivers. What about running backs? What about who to start, who to sit, who could boom? We got everything you need to help you win and smash your Week 10 matchup. Check out our Week 10 playlist right here.